Okay, good evening. I'm not making the speech, I'm just introducing our speaker tonight. The patron, vice presidents, Mr. Reela, members of the council, members of the ODU, and wives, distinguished guests, Thandi Moya, parent, former councillor, and new chairperson of the ODU Tertiary Fund. And finally, the man of the moment, the new chairman of Diocesan College, Council Niall Carroll, OD. Good evening. Two years ago, six ODs, five of whom are currently serve on the ODC, set out to democratize the election of council members. Few could have imagined that the journey would culminate in this moment, introducing Niall Carroll as the first democratically elected chairman of the Diocesan College Council in Bishops' 177-year history. That is a significant milestone. Before I go any further, I would be remiss not to acknowledge those who helped make it possible, particularly the stakeholders group and the younger ODs, so ably led by Nick Gustatus and Liam Rogers. Thank you. The impact of your work will be felt for decades. Tonight is, of course, about Niall, and Niall brings many strengths to the role: excellence, judgment, gravitas, and most importantly, the experience and leadership to guide a complex organization at an important point in its history. He can articulate a clear vision for bishops and unite stakeholders behind it. Niall participated in both the ODC interview process and the nomination committee process. It quickly became clear that he was an exceptional candidate and a chairman of the highest caliber. I'm deeply grateful that he accepted the nomination. Niall's story reflects many of the values that make bishops great. He attended the school on scholarships and bursaries, right through. So tonight I want to say to every current, future and former bursary boy and scholarship boys, your contribution matters. You are an integral part of the bishop's story and your voice will continue to be heard. As a pupil, Niall excelled across school life. He was head boy in 1992 and head of Ogilvy. He earned numerous academic distinctions and prizes, achieved provincial colours in sport, in athletics and chess, was an accomplished musician and a proud member of the Bishop's Brass Band. His achievements since leaving school have been equally distinguished, and his academic studies were once again funded by bursaries and scholarships. After Bishops, he completed a BCom honours degree at UCT, qualified as a chartered accountant, and completed his articles at Deloitte. He then joined Ivor Jones and Roy before becoming head of investment banking at Deutsche Bank after they took over Ivor Jones. Later, he founded Royal Bafokeng Holdings, a pioneering community-based investment organization that had grown to approximately $4 billion in value by the time he stepped down. He has also served as a non-executive director of several leading South African institutions. Today, he chairs a global organization employing more than 5,000 people. Niall has two very gifted children and is married to Sue, a former Herschel girl. On a personal note, I've had the privilege of working alongside Niall since the formation of the Rhodes Scholarship Working Group. During that time, I've come to appreciate not only his intellect and leadership, but also his integrity, humility, and commitment to service. That is why I'm optimistic about the future. We have an opportunity to strengthen the relationship between the Council and the ODC, and more importantly, to build an even stronger bishops. Under Niall's leadership, I'm confident we can do exactly that. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the Chairman of the Diocesan College Council, Niall Carroll.
Well, thank you very much, Simon, for that wonderful introduction. which was clearly provided by my loving mother. Many of you will recognize, even those of you whose tables are closest to the wine, the following words. It is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent. It is the one most adaptable to change. Charles Darwin. Actually, he never wrote those words. It was written by a business professor in Louisiana in the 1960s. But here's the thing. Even the misquote, adapted, survived, and thrived, which makes it perhaps the most non-Darwinian quote in history. Two men walk into a bar, Darwin and Gray, different hemispheres, very different people, the same essential question. Darwin spent over 20 years developing his theory of natural selection that shook the world when eventually published in 1859. While a decade before, in 1849, Bishop Gray was founding a modest school in Cape Town. But both were asking the same thing. What endures and why? And I don't mean endures in the sense of merely surviving, of grinding through. I mean it in the sense of a thing of such quality and purpose that nothing, not colonial history, not 2 world wars, not apartheid, not the daily challenge of educating teenage boys, could diminish it. Bishop Gray's purpose was to provide a liberal education with religious instruction in accordance with the principles of the Church of England. 177 years later, that purpose still endures. And the question tonight is whether we know what it means and whether we act accordingly. Now, the world in which Bishops operates today would be unrecognizable to Robert Gray. Trump reshaping the global economy before breakfast, a grinding war in Ukraine, turmoil and missiles in the Middle East, AI threatening to replace half the curriculum, the culture wars generating headlines, and South Africa's own complications of the day. And somewhere in all of this, Bishops trying to keep its footing. We are in the thick of it. So how is Bishops doing? Now, I had prepared a suitably modest answer, something measured, something that didn't sound like a school prospectus. And then I looked at what Bishops has actually been doing, and I'm afraid modesty is going to have to wait. Let me start with this. In April, Bishop's boy Samuel Clark stood in Bristol and placed first in the world in persuasive speaking at the World Individual Debating Championships. First in the world. Now, I'm sure the irony is not lost on a room full of men who spent their time at school being told to stop talking in class. Bishops was the top performing school in South Africa in the Maths Olympiad. In cricket and water polo, Bishops is ranked at the very top. Our music students continue to excel, and the Carfax Foundation has confirmed Bishops as one of the top 5 private schools in Africa. And this excellence is not new. The Avenue gates have opened for men who built London's underground, pioneered fetal ultrasound, and shaped the South African Constitution. For Raymond Ackerman, who changed the way South Africa shops. For Tim Noakes, who changed the way the world thinks about human performance. For Mark Shuttleworth, who left the planet. The list is not short. In sport, the tradition runs just as deep. From rugby Springboks and Test cricketers across the generations to hockey and swimming Olympians. And then there is Fairy Heatley. You can guess which house he was in. Ferry captained South Africa to its first ever rugby test victory in 1896, 130 years ago. The names change. The standard does not. Now, why am I telling you all of this? Not to produce a prospectus, but because what I've just described is not an accident. It is a fruit of something, a culture, a set of values, a sense of what Bishops is for, its purpose. And if we're going to have an honest question about the challenges ahead, we must first be clear about what we are protecting. Because you cannot adapt your way to greatness if you don't know what the core is. As they say at Eton, we shed our skin from time to time, but never our heart. Now, the night before Bish Bosh, it would be wrong of me not to acknowledge what many of you feel genuinely and deeply. The gap between Bishops' rugby heritage and where we stand today. That gap is real. It has been years in the making, and it has not been easy to watch. Rugby may no longer be the sport that every Bishop's boy plays, but it remains the one whose results every Bishop's boy feels. When it struggles, something in us struggles with it. The structure of top-tier schoolboy rugby has changed profoundly. The playing field is no longer level, and rebuilding takes time. That work has started. Unlike many other schools, rugby results do not define Bishops, and they never have. But if you believe in what Bishops rugby can be again, you can show it through commitment, through patience, and yes, through your checkbook. So whatever the scoreboard on Saturday, let us give thanks for the 3 rugby angels who have shown us how to carry both famous victories and desolate defeats with equal grace and perspective. Robbie Fleck, John Dobson, and Sasha Feinberg and Gomazulu. Blessed be their names. As I've thought about Bishops and what it needs, 3 things came to mind: elephants, drugs, and Tom Cruise. Now, those of you who visit the Kruger National Park regularly may have noticed in recent years a reduction in the number of large trees. The ecologists say that the growing elephant population has exceeded the natural carrying capacity of the park. They love eating trees. And when the trees disappear, so do smaller mammals, birds, and insects. When one element is out of balance, the whole ecosystem suffers. And you don't fix an ecosystem by treating symptoms, by relocating birds or planting more trees. You fix it by addressing the root cause. Which leads me, obviously, onto Ozempic and Mounjaro. The so-called miracle drugs, originally developed for type 2 diabetes, now used by tens of millions for weight loss. They're called miracle drugs because, as well as lowering blood glucose, a number of seemingly unrelated conditions, inflammation, high blood pressure, cardiac disease, osteoarthritis simply disappear. The lesson for institutions is the same. Fix the root cause, and many seemingly unrelated symptoms take care of themselves. Which brings me to Tom Cruise. At a film studio just outside London, it's part of a group of companies I'm involved with, I had a ringside seat over 3 years as Tom starred in and produced the last 2 Mission Impossible movies. And what I saw was not what I expected. Here is a man who's been acting since the age of 14. He's now 62. 45 films, worth over $500 million, and by any measure, one of the most famous human beings on the planet. And yet, when Tom Cruise arrives on set, he doesn't arrive as a star. He arrives as a craftsman. He would practice the same stunt repeatedly for months, putting himself in genuine physical danger until it was right. Not almost right, not good enough for the camera, but right. But here's what struck me most. For all the times Tom spends in front of the camera, he spends far more time away from it. Not in his trailer, on the floor. Talking to the director and the director of photography, yes, but also to the stunt coordinators, the carpenters, the electricians, the makeup artists, the runners. At first, I thought it was charm. It's not. It is strategy. And it comes from a deep understanding that a film production is an ecosystem, a temporary community of hundreds of people who must function as one under enormous pressure to produce something that did not previously exist. Tom Cruise knows that if the carpenter is not proud of the set he is building, it shows on screen. He knows that a film is only as strong as the quality of attention paid to every single part of its making. Talent alone doesn't make a film. It takes everyone pointed at the same thing. Bishops is also an ecosystem. A school is not a collection of buildings, sports fields, and educational programs. It is an ecosystem of staff, non-academic and academic, boys, parents, ODs, parents of ODs, the church, and the council. And a school is only as strong as the alignment of its people. Right now, we are not pulling in the same direction. I know many of you have felt marginalized, as if your voice no longer matters in the future of the school. No single group is to blame for this. It is what happens when an institution evolves faster than its shared understanding of what it is. This isn't only a structural problem. It is a problem of clarity about who we are, what we believe, and what we refuse to compromise. And that is precisely what I want to address tonight. I'm a new member of the Bishops' Council since Monday, so these are my own views, not yet tested with my fellow councillors. But I believe the community needs clarity on 3 things. The first is why we exist. Bishop Gray gave us the answer 177 years ago: to form young men who think clearly, act with integrity, and understand that their education carries with it an obligation to others and to the world they will inherit. The second is who we are. Bishops is a boys' school. It is an Anglican school, and it defines itself not through words, but through behavior. Behavior driven by 5 values: courage, humility, integrity, kindness, and respect. These values are not decorative. They are a standard. And a standard only means something if it is applied to everyone, in every context, whether anyone is watching or not. We know what behaviors are incompatible with those values. They have no place here, and they never did. Which brings me to what membership of this ecosystem actually demands. Not just attending school as a boy, paying fees as a parent, earning a salary as a staff member, or coming to dinners as an OD. Membership demands that each of us be clear about what Bishops is, that we are guided by its values, that we reject what is contrary to them, and that we live a life of service to others. The third is how ambitious we are prepared to be. Bishops has a stated vision, but it is so long even Dr. Paul Murray can't remember it. A good vision is short, memorable, and ambitious. Ours should challenge bishops to be one of the top 10 Anglican boys' schools in the world. Not benchmarked against St. John's, Michael House, and St. Andrews alone, but against Eton and Harrow in the UK, the King's School, Parramatta, and Melbourne Grammar in Australia, Christ's College in New Zealand, and St. Albans in the US. If we are not measuring ourselves against the very best, we cannot honestly expect to attract the best teachers, the best talent, or the funding we need to grow the leaders South Africa and the world needs. We are a South African school. Our roots here are not a footnote. They are the foundation. But Michelangelo had a warning. The tragedy of man is not that he aims high and misses, but that he aims low and hits. Let this not be our tragedy. Bishops, one of the world's great boys' schools in one of the world's great cities. This will not happen in a year, or perhaps even within a decade. But a journey without a destination is just wandering around. And Bishops deserves better than that. Darwin's great insight was not that the strong survive or the clever. It is that adaptation in service of an enduring purpose is what prevails. The Diocesan College has survived 170 years, 70 years, because at its core, some things have remained constant. Robert Gray founded this school to grow good men who understand that they are part of something greater than themselves. That purpose has not expired. It has, if anything, become more urgent. Darwin and Gray never met, but I think they would have recognized each other. Both were patient men working quietly on what they believed would last. Both were right. The question for us tonight, and for bishops, is whether we have the same clarity, the same patience, and the same courage of conviction. I know who you are. I know what this place has meant to you. Bishops is a part of every person here tonight. And every person here is a part of bishops for life. So join us. Build something that endures. Courage, humility, integrity, kindness, respect. Not complicated, not fashionable, not negotiable. This is who we are. Pro fide et patria.